Good morning, everybody. Welcome to our service from the Unitarian Society of Northampton and Florence. I'm Elaine Apthorpe. I'm a member of the Welcome Committee, also a member of the Worship Committee, and along with Janet and Flora of our choir. It's wonderful to see you here this morning. And here in the Great Hall and online, thank you to everyone who's helping to make this service happen this morning. If you are new or returning after a time away, we're very glad you're here. We're also glad you're here anyway. Feel free, if you're new or returning, to fill out one of these blue welcome cards and then put it in the offering plate later in the service. There's also an online version of this blue welcome, and you could fill that out and find it in a link through the chat later on. We'll put you on our email list so you can receive information about all our activities. We strive to be a congregation that welcomes people of all ages, races, religious beliefs, backgrounds, sexual orientations, gender identities, and abilities. We belong to the Unitarian Universalist Association of Congregations, and we are guided and inspired by its values and principles. Good morning. Our values and principles move us to remember that we here in Northampton inhabit unceded land of the Pecumtuck and Nipmuc peoples. They remind us to acknowledge our responsibility to face the legacies of dispossession and systemic racism that are part of our collective history, even as we also affirm and celebrate the legacies that inspire us. If you're on Zoom, we ask that you please keep your videos off except during the greeting. And for those of us in the Great Hall, much as what we are about to hear is going to inspire us, we ask that you please refrain from applause. Now we'll begin our service.
There's a place for us, somewhere a place for us, peace and quiet and open air, wait for us somewhere. There's a line for us, someday a time for us, time together and time to spare, time to learn, time to care, someday, somewhere, we'll find a new way of living, we'll find a way of forgiving. There's a place for us, a time and place for us. Hold my hand and we're halfway there. Hold my hand and I'll take you there. Somehow, someday, we'll find a new way of living. We'll find a way of forgiving somewhere. There's a place for us, a time and place for us. Hold my hand and we're halfway there.
Our opening words this morning are by Annie Dillard. We are here to abet creation and to witness it, to notice each other's beautiful face and complex nature, so that creation need not play to an empty house.
I invite everyone here to rise in body or spirit for our chalice lighting to the words of May Sarton. I'll light the chalice after we read. We'll remain standing for the first hymn, which is number 21 in the gray hymnal, For the Beauty of the Earth. Come out of the dark earth, here where the minerals glow in their stone cells, deeper than seed or birth. Come into the pure air above all heaviness of storm and cloud to this light-possessed atmosphere. Come into, out of, under the earth, the wave, the air. Love, touch us everywhere with primeval candor. And now it's time for us to greet one another. And some of us are already starting our greeting. If you're on Zoom, you're invited to turn on your videos, wave and say hello in the chat. It's helpful to switch to gallery view.
Do you all need me up here for the rest of the service? Or usually during the offertory is when we go back to our seats? I mean, the only thing I would say is just make sure your face is in the middle and that you're paper's not covering the county.
Okay.
Decide. I mean, either way.
That's all that's,
I
you
usually
can go to.
just-
Whew. Oh, that bell. So disturbing. It's been good to see everyone. Please remember, those folks on Zoom, do turn off your videos now. Our generosity makes everything here that we do possible, and it helps us support organizations and movements in the greater community. Half of the proceeds of each week's offering support the Society's operating budget, and half are shared outside our walls. The organizations we're currently supporting are listed on the screen. If you're participating on Zoom or YouTube, you can mail in a check or donate online. The link is in the chat. Our morning offering will now be given and gratefully received.
Good morning. Our meditation this morning is a poem by Mary Oliver, The Place I Want to Get Back to. The place I want to get back to is where, in the pine woods, in the moments between the darkness and first light, 2 deer came walking down the hill, and when they saw me, they said to each other, "Okay, this one is okay. Let's see who she is and why she is sitting there on the ground like that, so quiet, as if asleep or in a dream, but anyway, harmless." And so they came on their slender legs and gazed upon me, not unlike the way I go out to the dunes and look and look and look into the faces of flowers. And then one of them leaned forward and nuzzled my hand. And what can my life bring to me that could exceed that brief moment? For 20 years, I have gone every day to the same woods, not waiting exactly, just lingering. Such gifts bestowed can never be repeated. If you want to talk about this, come to visit. I live in the house near the corner, which I have named Gratitude. Please join us, please join in moments of shared silence, meditation.
So this congregation, as we wouldn't expect maybe, is more accustomed to silence. And we'll come out of it slowly to sing hymn number 27, I Am That Great and Fiery Force. Oh, we've got to do the height adjustment, I see. And the text, the music is by Josquin de Prez. Won't go there, look it up. And the text by Hildegard von Bingen, check out her Wikipedia article. She was an 11th century monastic mystic, and among many, many other things, a natural historian. So that's hymn number 27. Our reading this morning is a fragment of a poem by Adrienne Rich. Worth reading the whole poem. The fragment is number 665 in our hymnal, Gray Hymnal. If you ever want to look it up, it introduced me to this poem. She writes, "No one ever told us we had to study our lives, make of our lives a study, as if learning natural history or music, that we should begin with the simple exercises first and slowly go on trying the hard ones, practicing till strength and accuracy become one with the daring to leap into transcendence. And in fact, we can't live like that. We take everything at once before we've even begun to read or mark time. We're forced to begin in the midst of the hardest movement, the one already sounding as we are born." Thank you so much, Flora and Janie, for setting up the soundscape for us and accompanying us. It's wonderful. And in a commercial moment, I will just notice, we start with humor perhaps, that this bottle that I, found in my house to bring some water in claims to be Life Booch kombucha, and it's water. So Life is a brand. Dear friends, and I want to say kin, and you may understand why in a minute. I've had the privilege of coming into this great hall and or Laurel Park for over 30 years to sit, to reflect, to pause, to be asked to serve on committees, to sing, to pledge, and through all of this, to glory in the presence of your increasingly beloved faces, those new and old, and those lost to us for a while. Where? There we go. Loved long since and lost a while. And also to participate in summer lay services, usually right about the time that August begins to notice the tiny traces of September, often setting up a meditation for me about the tension between the more embodied and generative green world of the summer, and at least in the master narrative that seems to span all climates and cultures in this country, the structured, ranked, ordered, and somehow officially sanctioned world of the fall, the back to school and work story. This back to story privileges the world we have created in our image across human history. It imagines the life of the body in nature as lesser or a prelude that returns to a civilized mode, reined in and made productive by a structure initially designed to keep us alive through the winter that somehow across centuries turned into a cultural story, even a fetish that valorizes work as an absolute cultural good. And in the extractive capitalism that it ultimately produced, becomes a threat to life itself. You really can't make this stuff up, this story, except we did. So in this hot summer, where flood, famine, fire, and pestilence have captured the headlines, disturbed our hearts, and confirmed our worst fears, I found myself needing a deeper backstory, one that focused on life itself, on the mysterious business of being embodied, of being alive, and having conscious awareness of this fact. Because this is what I think we humans need, having innocently, haplessly stumbled into the Anthropocene by wanting our daily bread, and then confirming this and continuing to remake a world in our own image, for better or for worse. I think this is why we come together in religious societies, to thread the needle of this hardest movement, as Adrienne Rich calls it, the one sounding as we are born, not a story we created, one we were born into, part of the stream and inheritance. As I pondered this, 3 stories surfaced, 2 of them deeply etched in my own life because they concern the beginning and the end of life, and then a more recent one where a door opened. So first, a birth story. Although I had done the work of a parent, as a stepmother, helping to raise my husband's 2 children for almost a dozen years, I had never done the work of birthing a child until one early May morning, an anxiously anticipated baby, now the Edward some of you know, finally agreed to be pushed into the light, and his face looked up at me, and I, a lucky mother, instantly fell in love. I know this doesn't always happen. My next thought was of the cosmic sort. I instantly realized that in seeing his face, I was seeing a descendant of people I knew, of names further up that family tree, of people I would and could never know, his distant kin. And further, that he was connected to all of life, to every living form, and to the source of life. Here was the son of stardust and rocks and gas explosions and stuff. It was fathomless. And the thought after that, cascading into my consciousness, was abrupt. This child would die. Like me, he was mortal, temporary, just here for a while, frail flesh, breath, blood, and bone. Happily, that frail fat flesh was super cute, and his face entrancing, so my cosmic insight bled quickly into cozier territory and more mundane considerations. But for an indelible moment, we were just 2 panting humans resting on the shoals of the universe, and our recently sundered bodies were a miracle. Fast forward 10 years, and I glimpsed another short. And by the way, I thought you might be laughing in the earlier part, so now we're going to tell a story about the other pole of life. My beloved father, also named Edward, was dying, claimed by ALS and held by us, his family, at home, with hospice and spending a precious and extremely difficult time together as late and quickly progressing motor paralysis stilled his movement, while an oxygen tank still allowed for some raspy speech. A Presbyterian minister and a person of faith, a taciturn Swede, a wit, and a dancer, his grace in the face of this fate inspired and consoled me, even as I grieved his condition and anticipated his loss. Not everyone could have received, as grace allowed him to do, the intimate care of his wasting body by his adult children. While he still had some use of his legs, my husband Chris played guitar for him, and one day noticed his feet moving under the sheets. "What's the dance, Ed?" Pause, grasp. "Slow rumba." And a few days later, my father initiated another laborious conversation, aided by a life of verbal compression and by several pauses with the oxygen tank. Sermon of my life to preach, and no voice to preach it with. "What's the sermon, Dad?" "Gratitude. I never expected to feel this," he said. The truth, I think, here was in the living and in the dying, in receiving care and allowing us to be with him in this agonizing moment. And in that last worthy sermon, gratitude. We're verging on story number 3, and what seemed at the time and still seems in retrospect, and this is only July we're talking about, so retrospect is kind of recent, magical realism territory. But the story was real, so hang in with me. This July, as the gift of a generous friend, and at the urging of my mother and sister, I have a mother who would rather know that I'm on a trip to distant lands than actually see me, even though she lives 3,000 miles away, because she knows me and she loves to travel. So anyway, that was a generous gift, Mom. I had an unexpected chance to cruise through Northern Europe with my husband's cousins, heretofore referred to as kinfolk, and pass through, for me, the actual territory my family had come from, being, to state the very obvious, not only white, but so British Isles and Scandinavian white, that it really only took a single ocean and one cathedral, Winchester, to get me well into my personal backstory. Standing in Winchester Cathedral, and my people I think came from the north, but never mind, they probably, somebody spent some time in Winchester Cathedral. Somebody wrote a song about it. I heard a guide detail the violence of Cromwell and his thug enforcers as they disinterred the bones of saints to shatter its stained glass windows, which had held in their rich culture the communal stories of medieval Europe. In the wake of this, the townsfolk, as the horses and Puritans left, they swept in to sweep up the shattered glass fragments on the ground outside and kept them, later reassembled as a mosaic, intact, becoming a mosaic. While I pondered This egregious Protestant death cleaning in a cavernous chapel, echoing across time and space. The dean of the chapel, think, what we hear on Christmas Eve, the dean of the chapel, came on the PA system on a saint's day to bless and pray for us all, everyone there, in every condition, especially those who are suffering. A humble, direct, human voice echoing across the marble floor. It reached me and it stopped me. And then, as we cruised northward into the bracing gray-blue North Atlantic, ultimately to Norway and Iceland, I became gradually unmoored from the story of this more recent history, captured by the majesty of our inanimate kin, water coursing down massive faces of fissured rock, geysers, volcanoes, days without end, the invitation to soak in the sulfur of infernal pools, thermal baths, and by how much the people there seemed connected to this landscape, all land open to all, and this invitation taken up as evidence by the tents and trailers and other rude dwellings that allowed people to enjoy living outdoors in the fog and rain. And then, eclipsing the majesty of fjords and falls and dolphins cavorting at their summer home in the North Atlantic, came an invitation to stop by for coffee, sometimes referred to as the sacrament, but that's another story. So this is the real third story. On the second to last day of our trip, Chris and I were walking down the street in Reykjavik when a tall, beautiful woman walking her little dog, Sparta, stopped us for conversation. This is not Rick Steves, this really happened. I mean, it really happens to Rick Steves too, I guess. We learned that she was a Reykjavik native whose family has lived in this neighborhood for generations. In her youth, in the 1950s, she had studied in Michigan, in Canada, and her children were musicians who had studied in the US. Now, so many years later, her first love from some 60 years ago, now again, her boyfriend was there for a visit. Would we like to stop by for coffee a little later? And so, after pondering this in our hearts, in schedules, we found our way back to her white house on the corner, next to a blue house under bright blue skies. She opened the door, brewed the coffee, set the table, introduced her boyfriend, Bill, who, as it just happened, in a previous decade, had worked with the Fish and Wildlife Department in Hadley. And in casual conversation around this coffee table, hearing that I had a sermon to write, something I thought might happen on the cruise, that will never happen, on the topic Embodied, mentioned that his current work as a philosopher involves Hannah Arendt's work on GASP, the philosophy of embodiment. Well, she, our hostess, having graciously invited us into her home, got a phone call and had to speed away on an urgent family errand, providing care for her two delightful young great-granddaughters in the sudden emergence of sounded like what was a potentially difficult life situation. Can this happen? This really happened. This little cosmic coffee moment, coffee break of worlds colliding was real. And I think the moment of connection was made more real and at the same time more transcendent by this abrupt reminder, our hostess's need to suddenly depart it reminded me that we were in deeply human territory, deeply connected in ways we couldn't fathom, and that mortality is our ever-present reality, our home base, and our shared heritage. As travelers, we can see the abstract frame and the beautiful vista, but be deprived of the knowledge of the lived experience of a place. Our hosts not only offered this, but bill like a cosmic information service. And just imagine the rapid spiral of this conversation. I don't think we were there more than half an hour. Acquainted me with the philosophical discipline of embodiment, and perhaps anticipating that I wouldn't have time to get myself from Kant to Arendt and beyond, gave me a clue and wished me well on my topic before he too had to leave. And this was the clue, and maybe I think the whole thing. Our shared embodiment lies in the space we create for each other, the space between us. At least, that's what I heard, and I'm sticking to it. In this framework, our embodied life resides in the place we make for each other, in the place that we create between us, in the spaces we hold where we are not the same, but kin all the same. A place that we cannot create with a chatbot, a reality more true because it is co-created, a place that we cannot hold or sell, and which cannot be intercepted, surveilled, or used to create data points to predict our future desires and behavior. Life, mortality, being human, having a body is for me the ultimate backstory. It is not a place to visit. It is real, unfathomable, at times unbearable, at times sublime. And it is our common inheritance, a family lineage emerging up from the inanimate, in which our consciousness unfathomably yearns for the majesty of the rock face, the gentle deer, the falling water, to restore our sense of gratitude. It exists not in a hierarchy of being, but in a relational way of experiencing the other, face to face. May we experience moments of deep awe and gratitude. May this awareness not only lift us up, but urge our soft feelings for the hard places we encounter. May our imagination create compassion and our awe remind us to live, even though, as Adrienne Rich reminds us, we may be forced to begin in the midst of the hardest movement, the one already sounding as we are born. And may love touch us everywhere with primeval candor. Amen. So we have a hymn that we will sing together. And as a little thought experiment, it's hymn 324, where my free spirit onward leads. And I was thinking about the fact of this individual experience of consciousness and this blended experience of consciousness. And I played with, in my mind, making the singular pronouns in this hymn plural. I don't really invite you to do that to make the I, we, not suggesting that, just a thought experiment. And we'll sing it now. I just thought you might want to ponder that as you sing through it. So I didn't anticipate that the sermon would feel so heavy in the room. You know, talking about rocks and such. But here we are. The closing words I'll repeat the last part of the poem that Berkeley wrote, where it's been there to all of us. For 20 years, I've gone every day the same roads, not waiting exactly, just lingering. Such gifts bestowed can't be repeated. If you want to talk about this, come to visit. I live in the house near the corner, which I have named Gratitude.
No one here to guide you. Now you're on your own. Only me beside you. Still you're not alone. No one is alone. Truly, no one is alone. Sometimes people leave you halfway through the wood. Others may deceive you. You decide what's good. You decide alone. But no one is alone. People make mistakes. Fathers, mothers, people make mistakes. Holding to their own. Thinking they're alone. Honor their mistakes. Everybody makes one another's terrible mistakes. Witches can be right. Giants can be good. You decide what's right. You decide what's good. Just remember, someone is on your side. Someone else is not. While you're seeing your side, maybe you forgot they are not alone. No one is alone. Hard to see the light now. Just don't let it go. Things will come out right now. We can make it so. Someone is on your